Welcome back to the channel today. We're diving into one of the most polarizing topics in women's basketball, the fall of UConn's legendary dynasty under Geno Auriemma. Is this the beginning of the end for the winningest coach in college basketball? And how does the meteoric rise of stars like Paige Bueckers and Caitlin Clark fit into this shifting landscape? Let's break it down. The beginning of UConn's dynasty. First, let's rewind to 2016. Geno Auriemma was at the pinnacle of his career. UConn had just secured their fourth straight national championship with Breanna Stewart leading the charge. It was a moment that cemented UConn as the most dominant force in women's college basketball history. With 11 national titles and countless All-Americans heading to the WNBA, UConn was untouchable. For decades, Auriemma's name was synonymous with excellence. His coaching style, intense, structured, and undeniably effective. His players bought into the system, and the results spoke for themselves. Banners in the rafters and rings on their fingers. But fast forward to today, and the dynasty doesn't seem as invincible. What happened to UConn? Since their last championship in 2016, UConn hasn't cut down the nets. 7 years without a title might not seem like much for most programs, but for UConn, it's an eternity. This year, the cracks in the armor are even more apparent. Their first loss of the season to Notre Dame left fans stunned, and their star player, Paige Bueckers, struggling under immense pressure. So, what's changed? Critics point to Auriemma's coaching style, which many argue hasn't evolved with the times. While other programs are adopting fast-paced, dynamic offenses and modern defensive schemes, UConn's old-school approach is starting to look, well, outdated. The pressure on Paige Bueckers. At the heart of this debate is Paige Bueckers, the latest in a long line of UConn superstars. Ever since she arrived in 2020, the expectations have been sky-high. Her freshman season was electric. She averaged 20 points, 6 assists, and 5 rebounds per game, carrying UConn to deep tournament runs. But this season, something feels off, despite still leading her team in scoring with 18. 9 points per game, her performances in big games, like the shocking losses to Holy Cross and Louisville, have left fans scratching their heads. Auriemma himself hasn't held back in his criticism of Bueckers. In post-game interviews, he's called out her lack of aggression and tendency to play passively. He's even accused her of just standing around. Ouch. This public criticism has raised eyebrows among fans and analysts. Is Auriemma's tough love approach inspiring his star player? Or is it backfiring? Is Geno Auriemma holding UConn back? There's no denying that Auriemma is a legend. His achievements are unparalleled, and his legacy as one of the greatest coaches of all time is secure. But has his rigid system become a liability? Women's basketball has evolved dramatically over the past decade. Players like Caitlin Clark are redefining what's possible on the court with long-range shooting, flashy passing, and dynamic playmaking. Meanwhile, UConn's system feels stuck in the past, relying on the same structured sets that worked in the 90s and early 2000s. Bueckers' natural play style, efficient, pass-first, and unselfish, doesn't seem to fit this outdated mold. And that raises an uncomfortable question. Is UConn's system stifling her potential? Meanwhile, Caitlin Clark dominates the WNBA. Let's shift gears to Caitlin Clark, who has been nothing short of revolutionary for the women's game. Remember when Auriemma dismissed her potential, claiming her style wouldn't translate to the WNBA? Yeah, he probably regrets that now. In her rookie season with the Indiana Fever, Clark put up 192 points, 84 assists, and 57 rebounds per game. She shattered 62 records, including the most assists and three-pointers by a rookie, and became the first player in WNBA history to record 2 triple-doubles as a rookie. Clark's fearless shooting, logo-range threes, and undeniable swagger have made her a global phenomenon. Fans are flocking to games, and the WNBA is seeing record attendance and viewership. It's clear, Clark represents the future of women's basketball. But here's the kicker. Clark's success highlights everything that UConn is currently missing. If Clark had played for Auriemma, would he have let her shoot those deep threes? Or would he have tried to fit her into his rigid system, stifling her creativity and flair? The changing landscape of women's basketball. The rise of players like Clark is part of a broader evolution in women's basketball. The game is faster, more dynamic, and more exciting than ever. Teams like South Carolina, LSU, and even smaller programs are embracing modern strategies, UConn's legacy and challenges. Let's take a trip down memory lane. The University of Connecticut has been synonymous with dominance in women's college basketball. With 11 national championships under Gino Auriemma's belt, including an unprecedented 111-game winning streak, UConn redefined what it meant to be elite. Players like Diana Taurasi, Maya Moore, and Brianna Stewart weren't just great, they were transcendent. But now, the shine is starting to fade. UConn hasn't won a national title since 2016. That's a long drought for a program used to being on top. And in today's basketball world, competition is fiercer than ever. South Carolina, LSU, and Iowa have all emerged as powerhouses, shaking up the landscape. So what's the issue? Is it just a bad stretch, or are we witnessing something bigger? Let's break it down. The evolution of the game. To understand UConn's current struggles, we need to look at how the game has evolved. The modern women's game is faster, more dynamic, and centered around star players. Look at Caitlin Clark at Iowa, a bona fide superstar redefining what it means to be a scorer and playmaker. Or Angel Reese at LSU, who's blending raw power with finesse. Today's game is about freedom, creativity, and letting players shine. It's less about rigid systems and more about adaptability. And here's where Gino Auriemma and UConn seem stuck in the past. Gino's coaching philosophy has always emphasized discipline and execution. And don't get me wrong, it worked. But now, players want more freedom to showcase their individual talents. It's not enough to recruit top-tier talent. Coaches need to empower them to thrive in this new era of basketball. The Paige Bueckers dilemma, which brings us to Paige Bueckers, the crown jewel of UConn's roster. Since her high school days, Bueckers has been heralded as the future of women's basketball. Her court vision, scoring ability, and leadership are second to none. But injuries have limited her impact, and UConn has struggled to build a system that maximizes her potential. Think about it, Paige is a once-in-a-generation talent. Yet UConn's system hasn't allowed her to fully dominate the way players like Clark or Reese have. Is it the coaching? Is it the team dynamic? Or is it something deeper? Let me know what you think in the comments. Can Gino Auriemma adapt? And that leads us to the million-dollar question. Can Gino Auriemma adapt? He's a Hall of Famer, a living legend, but even legends need to evolve. Look at Dawn Staley at South Carolina, or Kim Mulkey at LSU. They've embraced the modern game, letting their stars flourish while staying competitive. Gino has to ask himself, am I willing to change? Sticking to the old ways worked in the past, but basketball isn't static. The best coaches are the ones who grow with the game. If Gino doesn't, UConn risks falling further behind. It's not just about X's and O's anymore. It's about culture, adaptability, and understanding the modern athlete. The 2025 WNBA draft and Paige's legacy. The 2025 WNBA draft is fast approaching, and all eyes are on Paige Bueckers. She's expected to be a top pick, joining a league that's becoming more competitive every year. Take Caitlin Clark, for example. Caitlin Clark, the future of women's basketball. Remember when Gino Auriemma said Caitlin Clark's game wouldn't translate to the WNBA? Turns out, he couldn't have been more wrong. Clark's rookie season wasn't just good, it was historic. The Indiana Fever, shattering records left and right. Clark set the WNBA rookie record for assists, 337, three-pointers, 1-22, and even became the first rookie in league history to record multiple triple-doubles. Oh, and she finished fourth in the MVP race. Not bad for someone who was supposedly overhyped. Clark's success highlights a key difference between her and Bueckers. Clark has been allowed to thrive in a system that plays to her strengths. Her ability to shoot from anywhere, her court vision, and her flashy style have made her a fan favorite. Meanwhile, Bueckers seems stuck in a system that doesn't fully embrace her potential. Gino Auriemma, a legend at a crossroads. Here's the big question. Can Gino Auriemma adapt? For years, Auriemma's structured, old-school approach was the gold standard in women's basketball, but the game has evolved. Players like Clark and new-age coaches are redefining how basketball is played. Fast-paced offenses, three-point shooting, and more player-centric strategies are taking over. Yet UConn still plays the same system they did in the 90s. That might explain why the Huskies haven't been able to reclaim their spot at the top, even with players like Bueckers on their roster. Other programs are catching up, or even surpassing UConn. Teams like South Carolina, LSU, and Iowa are embracing modern strategies, and it's paying off. Fans are tuning in. Viewership for women's basketball is at an all-time high, and players like Clark are leading the charge. What's next for UConn? As women's basketball enters a new era, Gino Auriemma faces a choice: adapt or risk being left behind. If he wants to return to the top, he'll need to rethink his approach and empower his players to shine in a modern system. The pressure is on Paige Bueckers too. The 2025 WNBA draft is just around the corner, and fans are wondering if she'll finally live up to the hype, or if the UConn system is holding her back. One thing is for sure, women's basketball is more exciting than ever. And whether you're rooting for UConn, Iowa, or any other program, there's no denying we're witnessing a pivotal moment in the sport's history. Do you think Auriemma can adapt? Is Paige Bueckers the key to UConn's future, or does the team need a bigger overhaul? Let us know your thoughts in the comments, and empowering their players to shine. Meanwhile, UConn looks like they're stuck in a time capsule. Sure, Auriemma continues to recruit top talent, but attracting talent is only half the battle. Coaching them to succeed in the modern game is the real challenge. Can Geno Auriemma adapt? So where does this leave UConn and Auriemma? The big question is, can he evolve? Can he embrace a more player-centric style of coaching that allows stars like Bueckers to thrive? Or will he stick to his guns, risking further decline? The answer will shape the future of UConn basketball and potentially the entire women's game. Looking ahead, the 2025 WNBA draft is right around the corner, and Paige Bueckers is expected to declare, will she finally secure a national title this season, silencing her critics and cementing her legacy? Or will UConn's struggles continue, leaving fans to wonder what could have been? One thing is for sure, the next chapter of women's basketball is going to be must-watch. Whether you're Team Paige or Team Caitlin or just a fan of the game, buckle up. The future of women's basketball is here, and it's more exciting than ever. Do you think Geno Auriemma can adapt to the modern game? Or is his time at the top coming to an end? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss out. We'll see you in the next one.